In your law firm, do you find precision to be important? I would think so. You want your team to be precise. How do you manage them towards that precision? Sure, there are exceptions in some law firms where precision isn't required, litigation or jury trials. At some point, you have to feel your way through it. But when filling out forms, completing briefs or documents, you really need to make sure that things are done precisely. Why? Because you could lose the case. You could be subject to malpractice if you do something incorrectly. Today, we're going to talk about a 5-step process that you need to know and what you definitely never want to do in order to achieve precision in your firm. Now, by the end of this video, you'll have somewhat of a step-by-step guide that you can use to start moving your firm towards this idea of precision-based management. So let's break into it, shall we? So the first step in making sure you get precision correctly is doing what we call this preliminary audit. In other words, we're suggesting make sure you get all the information you need and don't assume that just because they're on your team, that it means they're necessarily giving you all the information. Recently, we had a team member with a law firm suggest that they did everything right. And so when something broke, we went back to the team member to find out what it is that they did. And they said, oh, I followed the instructions according to this SOP. And then I said, oh, great. Show me what you did because I'm not understanding if you follow these instructions, why this went wrong. And when they provided the communication that they sent, it was identified that they had the wrong link in the email. Now, they sent the email according to the SOP, except they put the wrong link in the email, consequently, not following the SOP. So they thought they were doing it correctly, which brings me to my next point. Once you identify all of the information you need, you have to ask yourself, is this a human problem or is this a system problem? In this particular case, we realized this is a system problem. We were not precise enough with the information we gave the employee, and so they grabbed the link from the wrong place. We recognized we had to update our SOPs. So this was actually on the firm, not on the employee. Massive difference because we could have just simply blamed the employee. So getting a proper information audit is necessary to make sure that you have the right data to make your decision from. Let me reclassify this. Never say things like, that's not going to help, or I think you've been doing sloppy work. That's not a good way of starting off the conversation. Rather, hey, this client complained that they couldn't open this link. I think there's a problem with the way you're going about doing it. Can you provide me with some information about how you executed this communication? I think that comes under the concept of acting above the line or below the line. Below the line, we act from fear. Oh my gosh, my employee made a mistake yet again. I can't believe they did this. This always seems to happen to me, villain, victim, or hero. Above the line, oh, let me see what you did because I know you always do things well. I just want to identify the way in which you did it, coaching. Let's see if we can come up with a better way to do this together, creative. Hey, you know what? We identified this SOP is wrong. Could you do me a favor and update this SOP so that we don't have this problem going forward, right? So creative coaching or challenging, above the line thinking. So a lot of law firm owners and managers tend to act below the line and they don't act above the line. We're going to get more into this as we go through, but this brings me to my second point. So the second point is direct consultation. So at this point, what we want to make sure is we're getting kneecap to kneecap, whether virtually or in person with somebody, and we're starting to unpack what was actually happening. You want to diagnose what's going on by getting all of the information and getting into a direct consultative communication with them rather than just communicating solely in written text. So you want to actually meet with them in a consultative manner. So you're questioning, but again, coming from above the line, from coaching, creative, and challenging rather than victim, villain, or hero, right? Super important that framework is in place. It helps set the rest of this up for success. Now, this leans into the third point, where we're going to get into diagnostic of the inquiry. So now it's walk me through what you did. right? So going back to my example, they told me they did it. And so rather than just take their word that they said that they did it, with precision, I had to ask them, oh, show me exactly what you did. When you find mistakes made in your firm, just getting upset with somebody that they made the mistake or assuming they did it correctly, both of those are incorrect. The way that you figure out what they did is you need to see what it is they do and how it is they do it to ensure they're getting it done right. And if they're not, we're going to come back to coaching, being creative, and challenging them to get better based on what we create together. And that brings me to my fourth point. We call this collaborative correction. What that means is I'm not doing all the thinking for them. I'm saying to them, hey, how do you think we should solve this? Well, in this particular case, they said, I was never trained to do that. I just assumed you did it like this. I said, oh, what do you think we should do? Well, let's go back to the SOP. And they showed me the SOP, standard operating procedure, that they were trained from. And they said, see, it doesn't say which link to use. And so I assumed I should use this link, not this link. I said, okay, so what do you think needs to be done? And they said, I think we need to update the SOP. I said, I agree with you. And I said, the company is responsible for not getting this SOP right. Fundamentally, your manager and management, when they laid out this SOP, they didn't get it right. And so we didn't just blame them. We didn't become the villain. We weren't the victim. We didn't let them be a victim. We said we're going to take responsibility and work in this meritocracy-like way. And so we're going to look at where the fault lies. And in this case, it was in the SOP and in the training. Now, we could blame the manager. We can get mad at somebody else. But why? That doesn't do anybody any good. I just challenge them in a collaborative way to go about fixing the SOP, which leads us to our next point, the documentation trail. Especially in today's day and age with AI and virtual, I recommend doing these on Zoom, having a recording, maybe an AI feature, have a recorded AI summary of this meeting. It would be documented as part of the training and the SOP. If it was truly an employee error where they were not precise and it was their fault, it could become part of their record. So we have a record of it so we can go back and say we had this conversation. We would have this documentation trail of this communication cycle, and we would have a system that we could share with the manager to show them how things go bad when we miss the ability to get our SOPs correctly, and why it's important for the manager to actually utilize the SOP and make sure it is actually step-by-step precise. See, if you want precision, you have to have precise instructions. And in this case, though I wanted precision, what I ended up with was less than precise instructions because some assumptions were made when it was said to just grab the link that there was only one way to do it. The reality was there were 3 ways to grab the link. 2 of them were right, 1 of them were wrong. We just got unlucky that the team member in question chose the wrong one. Maybe we got lucky because that actually helped us understand how to correct it, right? So how you document this process is really important. If you want more help with this topic, you can visit us at thelawfirmsecret.com. We've got all sorts of tools and resources there. We'd love to walk alongside you. We can even schedule a call to take a look under the hood to see where you need to work on precision, or you can download some of our free resources. So again, there are 5 steps to precision in your law firm. Preliminary audit, direct consultation, diagnostic inquiry, where we're watching what they did and how they did it, and we're getting direct feedback so we can untangle the problem. We can figure out where it went wrong. Collaborative correction. It's not just a correction plan, me doing all the thinking top down. It's bottom up. What do you think should happen? How do we go about this? How can we do this together? How can I challenge you to fix this? How do we make sure that this doesn't happen again? And then 5, document. Always document. If it isn't written down, it doesn't exist. If you do these 5 things, you'll start to get precision. Now, here's the cautionary tale. And this is really important. I want to give you a bonus of 5 things you never, ever want to do. Because even if you do everything I said, but you do it wrong, you're going to find yourself in a hot mess. So let me explain those to you. Number 1 on the list, never, ever correct in front of others. Now, I'm going to tie this directly to never communicate solely through Slack, Teams, or email. So, my mentor many years ago, Art Williams, taught me you should negatives up and positives down and around. And the way that you pass negatives up is that you bring your challenges or whatever to your manager, and you never bring this negative down and around. It means you don't correct in front of others. However, because I was communicating via Slack, what happened is I was in a team thread and we kept going back and forth in a question and answer. And before I realized it, I got into the corrective behavior, and this team member felt like I corrected them in front of the whole team. And you know what? They're right. I did. I didn't mean it that way. I didn't want to do it that way. So despite that it was virtual on Slack, it was still in front of everybody. So communicating on Slack, email, Teams, whatever, is really a no thing. Once you identify there's a problem, you need to move it offline of the Slack, Teams, email, move it to a kneecap to this direct consultation method we're talking about. The next never thing was never ever be vague. Be very clear. Always be clear. Don't say we need to be better about communication. Say, in this particular case, hey, I noticed the client couldn't click on a link and it's happened more than once. Can we dive into what's going on? Precise, not vague. You want precise results. Don't be vague with your communication. The third thing you never want to do, never ever wait. Some people will say, oh, I'll wait till the quarterly review or their monthly review or the meeting that's going to happen on Wednesday. Ken Blanchard wrote this great book called The 10-Minute Manager. And the fundamental rule says you should correct behavior is in as close proximity to the mistake as possible. That's generally the way people remember things the most. Now, you got to do it in a humane way, so it's as close as possible while still remaining the other rules of don't do it in front of anybody else. Make sure you criticize in private and you praise publicly. Never, ever make it personal. I will tell you that, unfortunately, this team member isn't with us any longer. They just want to go do their job and they don't want to worry about all these details. And they felt like we were too detail oriented. So they weren't willing to work in a precise environment. Probably wouldn't be a great case manager for a law firm, right? But what they also said on the way out was some things that were somewhat tossed in my direction personally. Now, for a long time, many years, because of the way I was raised to manage, I would have gotten personal back. I would have put a little East Coast jump on them. You know what I'm saying? They would have got a little Pennsylvania, little Jersey out of me. And so that's not a dig on people from Pennsylvania and Jersey, by the way. If you're from there, you already get it. Look, at the end of the day, I would have reacted in a way that wouldn't have served me well and it wouldn't have served them well. And so when they get personal, and oftentimes they will, you have to use your very best judgment in order to allow that space in between when they get personal, called stimulus, and your response. This is where your power lies. And so it's going to help us be better recruiters for this particular position. Never ignore the why. So you could do all the 5 steps before it. If you fail to let them in on the secret as to why we do what we do, this person sent an email with a link that didn't work. Well, we have a reputation with our clients of doing things the right way. Our reputation matters to us because we have repeat business over and over again from our clients. So it's really important that they understand the why. In this case, the why is we need to be precise because we teach our clients they need to be precise and we need to eat our own dog food. We believe around here that a law firm owner can actually build a profitable law firm, one that is run by systems led by people in a way that supports their lifestyle rather than undermines their lifestyle. It allows them to sell for the highest possible multiple if they want to, somewhere down the road, assuming they build it on systems. However, it's vital that they train with precision, have SOPs with precision, manage with precision, and communicate with precision when they're building correct behavior, never to-dos. And if you do that, you're going to move closer to building the systems that are going to set you free and get you out of maybe the chaos that you feel like you're into. If you want more help with this topic, you can visit us at thelawfirmsecret.com. We've got all sorts of tools and resources there. We'd love to walk alongside you. We can even schedule a call to take a look under the hood to see where you need to work on precision, or you can download some of our free resources. I tell you what, let's go build your practice, a 5-step precision management system at a time.